Well, as expected, the dollar has returned bullish, and this is going to be an interesting week for the dollar now that we have a resumption to the uptrend. Before we get to that and other charts and more opportunities for this week, thank you for joining me. This is the Sunday weekly market outlook. My name is Dima, as always, with you here to pick out the best opportunities for this week and outline the scenarios for possible trade ideas. Right, guys, let's have a look at what we've got for this week. I've outlined the charts here on the right hand side with the directions. Let's have a look at the economic calendar and the news first, as always, before going into the technicals. So we have this week beginning 16th of October. On Monday we have a few bits of news. Typically it's a quieter month, but we do have New Zealand CPI numbers there. Let's watch for that. We do have a New Zealand pair this week to look at, and Tuesday we get to the pound news. We have CPI on the CAD there, and then we have some dollar retail sales news. We also have a speech from Bank of Australia, and then we've got CPI on the pound, minor dollar pairs again, unemployment rate on the Aussie, and then a speech from the Fed chair on Thursday there, and then ending the week on Friday with some more minor news, and then also the New Zealand there again. So what do we have as overall picture? We've got CAD is very prominent, we've got pound being prominent, we have some dollar news as usual, and New Zealand, and also Aussie there. So Aussie and New Zealand somewhat linked, and that is the outlook for the week. Let's see where that news may fit in with the technicals and have a look at the charts. Let's begin then with the dollar, as we always do. Let's move that to the side. And here is where we're at. We're expected the dollar to continue resuming its uptrend with this channel. And we had that with the news last week on Thursday. I think that was the CPI. Now that we've hit the initial level, reversed off it, and now we have the next level higher to look for. So that looks like a swing to the high side, broken these structures to the left and continuing on the uptrend. So bearing that in mind of where the dollar is going when we're looking at the other currencies. Okay, and this is the other currencies. We did look at euro. And this is the idea for the euro, where we ended up after the news Thursday, Friday. We wanted to see a higher price before continuing on the drop. As you can see on the weekly closed bearish. So we'll look at that continuation, the inverse of the dollar, of course. Strong dollar means weak euro dollar. And we've got that target here to the low, and then the next low after that. We can now remove these ideas from the previous week. We now have this remaining as the invalidation because we can see the clear swing point, and of course getting a better price would still be the preference. So this would be the first scenario. If we move higher, and if we don't, and we instead break this low, if we do, you never know if you do, then the next scenario would be a break, a pullback, getting a better price and continuing to the downside. So there may or may not be some kind of level developing there. We'll see when that happens, if it happens, and then play it by ear according to how the market plays out. Price will tell the story. It leaves the footprints, as you can see, and we follow along what those footprints are doing. Kind of smell it out and just watch for what it's doing to give us the clue for our scenarios and direction. Okay, that is the bearishness on the euro. Let's move on to the next one. This week picked out dollar CAD. Why dollar CAD? Well, because we have the swing here, we have the bullishness, left this big wick, and last week was an inside bar, which is, what does that mean? If you've been with me last week, I kind of mentioned it. An inside bar in a trend is a brief pullback, and then we have a continuation. Therefore, what do we expect? Well, we're going to look for a continuation. We have had all of these levels hit, and these were the next levels marked out, as you can see, these highs. And it seems that we are now on the way to these next levels. If you, by the way, like this video, click on the like button, subscribe, and receive the notification so you don't miss any video 3 times a week. As usual, you know the drill. Sunday Outlook and Tuesday and Thursday, we update the technicals on where the charts are. Okay, that is the continuation of the week. And of course, if we're going to be bullish, the first obvious target will be here, then the next high right up here, and then the one after that. Let's look on the daily. Here we see an obvious swing on the daily. We have had a brief pullback, another inside bar on the daily here. So what are we looking at? Well, we have a level, again, a better price, and then continuing higher into the level. So that would be the idea. We may then have a break of this high and then next level up there, but we see when we get there. At the moment, a nice cheap price would be down here. Okay, that is the scenario on dollar CAD. Bullish on the dollar, therefore bullish on dollar CAD. And here we have dollar yen, and dollar yen, another one. We were looking at bullishness. We're looking at first this level. Last week, similar to the dollar index, we had the pullback, brief pullback, left this wick to the downside, and the news ran it higher. I also mentioned this 150 level, significant number, so no surprise we had that brief reversal, and now we're looking to aim to the next target. Let's remove that. Let's go to the lower time frame. We have this swing. We have the daily going higher and higher. Don't need that anymore. Let's just remove that. Let's move this out of the way. And what do we see? Well, we see an obvious swing low over here. So that will be a reference point for invalidation. And we also see a level here. And that becomes an idea. So similar to the dollar CAD, really, isn't it? It's just a better price, really heading a little bit lower and then continuing to the upside. First obvious target level is this. We had this huge Bank of Japan manipulation to the downside, as we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, and now looking to continue higher on the dollar yen. Strong dollar, overall weak yen, therefore the upside on dollar yen. And there we are. That is the outlook. Hopefully that is clear for you. If you have any comments or you don't agree, then you're welcome to leave a comment below. Comment your comment in comments. And if you have your own charts or you think there's something that looks a bit better, feel free to share a link as well below. Okay, that's the continuation there on the dollar yen. Let's move on to the next one on the list, which is the Swiss yen. And of course, Swiss yen, why are we looking at that? Well, continuing where we left off into the next target points with the bullish run on the Swiss yen. As you can see, bullish previous week, again, like Bank of Japan manipulation, intervention, and another bullish week, continuing to the upside. Here we have those continuations, higher, 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 as we already looked at. Clear to see that bullish run. Here's that bullish reversal idea we had, and now we're going to look to the next idea. What's the next idea? Well, we have a more minor level here. We have the last previous swing as the invalidation, and now again lower prices, and then continuing to the next target points up here, and then these this double high up there. So no reason for bearishness, still continue bullishness until we invalidate, until we see otherwise. You may want to, I don't know, if you draw trend lines, whatever you like, it doesn't matter. At the moment we are looking at a bullish scenario on dollar yen unless something changes. So of course the market can reverse unexpectedly. The yen can suddenly turn very bullish. The yen can do that, as you can see, very clear intervention, manipulations, whatever name you want to give it. We have had very funky price action on yen. But overall, until we see otherwise, the bullishness is the idea here on Swiss yen. Okay, and I should say Swiss is also bullish itself. If you look at the charts across the board, there's one little tip for you as a side note. Looking at Swiss overall on its other pairs, across other pairs, comparing the Swiss, you can see that the Swiss is the stronger of the two currencies, whichever chart you look at as it stands for the moment. Therefore, Swiss yen is a bullish idea. Okay, Euro pound, another one carrying over from last week. It's one we looked at. And what are we seeing on Euro pound? So let's just remove the markings for a second. We see a pin bar, which signifies bullishness, continuation of this bullish impulsive move. This was the pullback, retracement, whatever name you want to give it. And what does that mean? Well, that means that this is likely, I say likely in terms of probabilities, was the reversal. We had the gap down, we had this engulfing candle, and it closed higher, breaking this high, and the next day, Friday, broke this other high, which seems to signify that this low over here, in line with the trend line, in line with the confluence of this zone, exactly what we were looking at last week, perfectly aligned, has now created this bullish momentum. So let's now remove this. We will have the last swing as our invalidation point. In fact, I'm going to leave it just a little bit lower, seeing as we have no wick to the downside here. And with this bullishness going into the lower time frame, what do we see? We've got the break of this structure, multiple structures broken. As you can see, we don't really need to see that. It's clear to market, it's clear to see. And with that, we will have the last low as, oopsie daisy, the last low as a reference point. So if we want to look at a scenario, the possible scenario here is this, and then continuing higher. It seems quite obvious in this case. And if we break this low, then we will continue to look at Euro pound for another entry, as long as we don't break this invalidation point down here. That is the bullishness on the Euro pound. Fairly, I would say, fairly clear. I mean, this is what we've been waiting. We've been waiting quite a while for this to happen. And now that it has patiently waiting, patiently, this is the next idea. Now looking for the run to buy level. We've got this high here. We've got the next high here. And then these next highs over here. So as expected, bullish Euro pound. Now move on to Euro New Zealand, one we haven't looked at for a little while. Why are we looking at this? So let's remove all these previous markings and let's look at it fresh. Let's just have a quick look on the monthly. As you can see, we have a bullish monthly trend. No real sign of reversal, although this looked like a very weak candle. However, no pattern or reversal pattern here. Looking for continuation to the upside, and this being the swing. Looking on the weekly, and the weekly has created a pin bar, big bullish engulfing candle, engulfed almost 2 weeks, but definitely this inside bar. Took out the lows and now heading higher. Now that it's heading higher, what are we going to look at? Well, we're going to look at the next target's high. These are quite a way away, so let's just look at the nearest one so far. So we have clear swing there. Let's see if we have anything on the daily. We have this high up here. Don't need these markings anymore. So this will serve now as a reference point, and we have these bullish days. Let's have a look on the lower time frame. We have a very extended, expensive price. Extended market has moved around higher. Don't want to be chasing it. So therefore, what do we want to look at? Of course, we want a better price. We want a pullback. We want a nicer entry. We want a good risk to reward if possible, the best possible. And otherwise not participate if the market, if the probabilities aren't in our favor. Of course. Where do we see a level? Well, one level I see is here, which would mean that this low becomes an invalidation point. And the idea would be the better price here to then continue to the upside. That is, if there is a lower price. We do have, remember, New Zealand news this week. Twice. I believe it's Monday and Friday, if my memory serves me correctly, but always double check that. And also remember that because Australia and New Zealand are kind of interlinked, they're very close to each other, Australian news may sometimes affect the New Zealand dollar. Therefore, I would consider that in terms of taking into account when you are looking at the technicals and your scenarios and the calendar, matching it up with the news. That's the overall idea on Euro New Zealand there. Hopefully that is clear. Let's have a look on the weekly. As you can see, it has turned bullish. These are our next targets, and then we'll see when we get there. We'll reassess, and maybe we'll have the next highs, possibly, who knows. We will have to reassess, but at the moment, that is the idea, at least for the short, medium term. Okay, Euro New Zealand there. Now let's have a look at the next one, which is Pound Swiss. Why are we looking at Pound Swiss? Well, not looked at this for a while, and you can see why we haven't looked at this for a while. Long-term ranging, consolidating behavior. Really messy price action, really unclear. This is extremely choppy and hard to read. Not clear, is it? So why are we looking at it today? Why are we looking at it this week? Well, because we have had this, as you may call it, breakout, momentum, whichever word you want to use, whichever name you want to give it. And what does that mean? Well, we have the downside. So now that we have the downside, as this week has closed very bearish, we look to continue on that bearishness. So we're going with where the market is flowing currently. Let's look to the left, and we can see we have this swing here to the left as a next target. It seems that we are approaching it, and therefore, because we are approaching it, we are very close to it. We really want to see a much better price. So let's go down and see where we're at. We can measure this Friday's candle, and what we can see is here is the halfway mark, and here is the 62 area and above. So we can mark that as an entry idea scenario. Let's look on the lower time frame. Very bearish candles. We don't want to be chasing this price. Do not want to be jumping on a trend which is almost nearing its target point. Really want to see a better price, and that is if we get it. Now, if we run right into this level, 1.09, or where this line is, 1.089, then this will be invalidated, and we will no longer be considering this. Remembering once again that we have pound news. Swiss is very bullish, so that would match with this pound Swiss idea. And if we have pound news and the volatility of the news, or the timing of the news, lines up with this idea for the pullback, and then continuing downwards into the target, that will be the higher probability scenario, and going into the next level. We've breached all of these levels. If you want to draw a trend line, if that's your thing, you can see we've broken that. Clearly, the downside is prevailing at the moment. So that's the scenario on Euro Swiss. Let's just have a look. I'll just come down and bring in, of course, the usual, what we usually do, the invalidation point. And let's see if we do actually reach into this level. So that's the idea on pound Swiss. I don't see any other scenarios at the moment after this long-term consolidation. And when we get to this level, then we have to reassess and see if we continue lower. For now, that is the pound Swiss scenario. Okay. All right then, and we're back at the dollar. That is the outlook for this week. One thing to mention is that we do have an ongoing situation in the Middle East right now. As you may know, you may be aware of that, and that could create some more volatility in the markets. So watch out for that. Remember, either way, whichever situation we're at, we want to manage our risk because you never know what's going to happen, whatever kind of spike we have. As you saw, let me just go back to the dollar yen. You can see this humongous move a couple of weeks ago, I think it was. And that is massive within a space of 4 hours, massive 250 pips. And that just shows you that you never really know what's going to happen or when it's going to happen, when something will kick in, and how fast and how hard the market will hit against you if you're on the wrong side, which means that, as always, manage your risk. Of course, if you're on the right side, then okay, great, but we can't bank on those. It's not a sustainable long-term idea or long-term scenario. Okay, so here we are, back to the dollar outlook, as expected, continuing to its bullish scenario. Okay, what else do we have to mention this week? Just looking quickly over the pairs on the weekly chart, you could see we had a bearish week on the euro dollar, continuing to its expected target, which we just missed last week. And yeah, dollar bullish again on dollar CAD. Just looking over once again, make sure I've covered everything. Yeah, if I was going to pick a favorite, so to speak, I would stick with the dollars because they are the most, both technically speaking, it's the highest, the clearest scenario. Euro New Zealand, not the cleanest, pound Swiss, not the clearest, but the dollar pairs definitely looking like they are going in a clear direction so far. So those are the scenarios. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you catch Tuesdays and Thursdays videos as well, because as this market develops, we're going to be keeping up with it and looking at where the next opportunities lie if they haven't developed already. And these are the scenarios for this week. Again, if you don't agree, it doesn't matter. Make sure that you are happy with where the technicals in the charts this week match up with yours. Of course, it has to be a good enough scenario for you, and always make your own decisions. These are just ideas, as a little disclaimer. Okay, thank you for joining me this week, and I will see you in a couple of days for the next video. All right, guys, bye for now, and have a good trading week.